Okay, I'm here in College Green at the Bank of Ireland building at the launch of This Is Leinster, a new documentary following the Leinster women's rugby team on their interprovincial glory, and I'm with one of the members of the team, Eimear Corri. Good evening, Eimear. How are you?
Good, thank you.
It's a fantastic piece of work, and I've been talking to various different players about taking people behind the scenes and having a camera following you around is an experience that maybe people mightn't be used to, especially from an Irish perspective. People might be uncomfortable. What was it like?
Yeah, I think at the start it was definitely strange. We kind of had the odd videographer or photographer, for certain days of our training. But at the end of the day, we were very keen. We were very aware that we had a job to do. And coming into this championship as Interpro champions, we knew that we were the team that other teams were out to get. So I guess the novelty of having the documentary team all there definitely was short-lived, because we just went straight back to focusing on training. But I think when we brought them to our houses, for me that was kind of the moment where I went, gosh, people are going to start to see us as players or as individuals rather than kind of our on-pitch personas, and I think that was hugely insightful for me to know that we were going to get to showcase this side of us and our personal lives to the public and just allow people to see us kind of with our hair down. Yeah,
and whether or not we're good at using Nespresso machines and stuff like that.
Well, I kind of wish they didn't see that part of me, but
it humanises you. So she's not perfect, that's good.
Yeah. I know, it's all a bit of crack, but I think it is, Hannah alluded to it this evening in the documentary as well, the lessons of showing other people that we don't just show up at the weekend and decide we want to play for Leinster. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and to be balancing that with careers and family commitments and events and things that we might also have to sacrifice to be able to show that and show what it means to us and why we do those things, I think is an insight that people don't usually get to see. And the media have been great, and historically as well, they've really showcased when we have won the championship even last year. But I think to see the journey that it takes to get there and to see the hard work that goes into it and the bad times as well through either selection or injury or the challenges we go through as a team, I think that's the real journey that we feel all the time. So it's nice to share that with everyone else.
And that must be quite a good exercise in introspection as well. I know works like that, and when you watch it back, but even as you're going through it, you look back on where you've come from in your career and go, oh yeah, I did that and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. And as you say, you get into this bubble where everyone's doing the thing you're doing. We're all at Leinster training, so we're all good enough to be there, or we're all good enough to put our hand up for selection. So you kind of lose that perspective of how incredible it is to be in a Leinster setup. So as you say, to be able to have that insight or have to reflect on the moments that are being captured, you realise how unique they are and how privileged we are to be in a position that we get to experience that, and often how little maybe people from the outside see the opportunities we have or see what we go through. The reflection that this documentary definitely gave me was hugely insightful and very interesting.
And the opportunities to kind of get to know each other as well. In the first episode, you're showing the Mirai, which is the idea, the brainchild of Tania Rosser, the head coach, and being there in Tullamore Rugby Club, mattresses on the gym floor, and sharing your honest to God, I was like, yeah, better you than me. But sharing your experiences and what it all means to you, and kind of stripping back everything and getting to what sports psychologists refer to as knowing your why and your motivation and your ambition. That must have been so therapeutic and cathartic.
No, it was, and I think seeing other people's why gave us such a deeper understanding of each other on the pitch. And again, coming back to, you are in an elite interprovincial setup and the standards are hugely high and expectations of training and skills are high. So training can be quite ruthless if things don't happen, or maybe someone's skills drop for whatever reason in a session, or a balls go to deck or whatever. But to know the background from that Tullamore session of what it is that's driving that person to be there, or why what they have going on in their personal life, allows you to connect with them on a deeper level. And you know, we may have been fighting for positions, but there was girls that would go up to other players and go, look, I reckon you're having a bad day today. You know, and we were there for each other on a different level whilst competing with each other, but we could connect so much more, knowing people's why, knowing their drivers, and knowing what they're going through in their personal life as well.
Yeah, and I suppose it makes it much easier to drive those standards and to maybe give a player a bollocking in training when they're not doing something right. Like, I know it served the Munster men's team of the early to mid-noughties fairly well that they could get out and they were all really close in a close-knit group, so that in training they could kick the living snot out of each other. Like, having those moments and those intimate periods are great for when you're trying to drive those standards and maybe you're saying things that aren't personal but might cross a line.
Yeah, exactly, because you can have this off-pitch relationship that isn't solely based on the foundations of rugby, so that if something is said on the pitch, it's not an attack on someone's character, it's what happened on the pitch. And then it's so much easier to park that on the pitch that when you get off, because you have this alternate relationship with somebody and you have something deeper to talk to them about, be that family or something going on in their life or their career or their pet or any of the number of things that we heard of. But to have those kind of almost like an on-pitch relationship and an off-pitch relationship makes it easier to drive those standards on the pitch, say what you have to say, but it not be a personal critique or a personal attack, and then come off and just go back to the normal relationship.
So, doing the maths in my head from the documentary, you're finished now. You've graduated.
Yeah, I just graduated in June 2024. So, started work the week the Interpros kicked off, kind of the real intense training kicked off.
Yeah, the first week of final year was your first Ireland camp, and the Interpros kick off, and you're
busy.
Yeah. It feels like I can't get a break here. Former now Leinster head coach Tania Rosser at the launch of This Is Leinster. Tania, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. It was a bit nerve-wracking tonight, but yeah, I'm happy with how the first episode's turned out.
There were some words at the start, and you got a little bit emotional. Are you still coming to terms with the fact that it's kind of done now, this chapter?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a big part of my life for pretty much 4 years. It took up a lot of my time and my family's time, and the squad mean a lot to me. So yeah, it is quite emotional. I'd love to have stayed on, but I don't have that opportunities, but that's okay. So it's time to find new opportunities and a new journey to start.
And signing off with an interprovincial title, like, that's not a bad way to go out.
No, not at all. Back-to-back champions, which is great. I remember in my first year, one of the first interviews, I was asked, can you develop players and win at the same time? And it just shows the last 2 years that we were able to develop those players and win back-to-back. So I'm happy with that outcome.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that struck me, and I think is striking a lot of people with how women's rugby is structured in this country now. Like, you think of Ruth Campbell only getting her cap this year for Ireland, for instance, but being in that WXV3 squad, like, there seems to be a much more of a duty of care and an emphasis on development, where it's not just let's just pick the best players now and see where we go.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're lucky here in Leinster with our pathway. The pathway staff are doing a really great job from under 16s, under 17s, and obviously the under 18s girls, and then they fall into us. And the same going through to the national team. I think a lot of these young players are really lucky now. They've got lots of opportunity to play some good rugby. And I think that's really, really important that they're playing lots of rugby.
Like, the documentary is so interesting because we saw the first episode tonight, and the concept of the marae was something that was, I presume I'm saying that wrong.
The marae, yeah.
That was a really great way of just bonding the team as you go into that type of window. Did you see the benefits of doing something like that?
Yeah, I did actually. Like, the moment where it kind of like struck me, let's do a marae style, I was like, how can I reconnect people and connect each other and get to know each other? And when I think about what I went through growing up in my sport, and that's how we lived back home and how we grew as a village and a community, I just thought it was the right idea to bring them together. I also wanted to take them out of their comfort zone. Like, they were always used to hotels and being at home, so I was just trying to get them out of that as well. And I think the whole connection and connecting with each other was valuable, and I think it really stood to us this year.
Yeah, because for those who aren't aware, it was basically you brought everybody to Tullamore and everyone slept on the floor, and it was kind of just, this is it, we've mattresses here and you make your own fun and we're going to bond somehow through that. Was that just the idea?
Yeah, basically. So basically behind a marae is a meeting place. We call a hui, so it's a meeting, but it's based on it. You don't finish that meeting. There's no time limit until everything has been discussed, or you need to be discussed before you go out and do anything else. And that was just the idea behind it. We had a lot of singing, a lot of games. Each player got to tell their own story about why they were there. You know, there were a few laughs, there were a few cries. You know, some of these girls have gone through a lot, and a lot of people wouldn't know what they've been through, and that's tough, and that gives us an appreciation of what they put into playing rugby. You know, there's some girls that someone might be sick in the family that we never knew about, and they shared those stories, or they've been through something, and I think that's really important for coaches, that we know that they've got a human side to them, that they're not just players, and that we need to care for them as if they're one of our own kids.
Well, stripping all that back and really getting to the values and, as you say, the motivation, and I know in sports psych, knowing your why is such a big thing in modern sports psychology. Were you as coaches sharing your own kind of stories and how you got into it? Because I think sometimes we don't see coaches as necessarily human beings too. They're sort of, they can be authority figures or just your boss.
Yeah, definitely. I actually shared my story a week before we went out, which was quite tough. Like, I come from a huge farm in New Zealand. I'm a Māori girl, and growing up Māori in New Zealand wasn't the easiest for me. And I got to share that with the girls, and you know, myself and John actually came from the same town but never knew each other. We came from totally different societies in life. So I got to share that, how my life as a young Māori girl wasn't the easiest to be. And Billy shared his story. He had a great story as well. You know, he grew up in a family of 10 kids. The youngest, you know, struggled to get fed and stuff like that. And then John shared his story about being in the police force and things like that. So we all got to share our stories. I think it's important that they also see us as people. And yeah, I can be the boss, and I can be, you know, quite tough on the girls, but I'm also human as well, and hopefully that came across to them this year.
And that's something that's key in terms of the development of rugby. I know Ilona Maher has talked about rugby really needing to get itself out there a bit more, and she uses TikTok in a really interesting way. But like within the Leinster team and the Ireland rugby, women's rugby scene at large, there are all these stories and all these people coming from various different backgrounds, and I think documentaries like this showcase that kind of personality. But do you feel we do enough to show that actually women's rugby, especially in this country, is a game for all? It is not just the vestige of like the upper class or the Dublin school scene.
Yeah, you know, I think we can do a lot more. It's really, really improved, especially in Leinster. I remember when I first came on board, we did a lot of things traditionally, what the men's team did, and then when I spoke to Marcus, was it last season, I asked, we need to show the girls' character, and we need to show them their raw state and what they are, how they are and who they are. So, and they allowed us to do that this year, and there's photos of Amy grabbing the camera and she's throwing her face in it, or there's Ruth, beatboxing, like whatever she's doing, her raps or whatever. So it's really improved, but I think there's a long way to go to get out there and show people the diverse inclusiveness of women's rugby.
What do you feel the next step in that? Is social media kind of the game changer? Because like you look at someone like Charlene Mosley or Rashida Adeleke, and they're huge and they've captured the imagination of young people especially, and that's how you get through to them. So having that social media literacy must be hugely important for, say, rugby players as they're going to, potentially their first World Cup.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the younger generation know how to use all these social media, but I just think that they need to be confident and actually maybe get educated a little bit more on how to promote themselves a bit better on the Instagram or whatever they're on, the Snapchats or the TikToks. There are some girls here with some really good followings, and this, these girls have great character. They're so funny. They're really educated. They're super talented, and it's not just rugby; it's other forms of life that they're really good at, talented with as well. I just think they just need to get out there and have a bit more confidence. I think the provinces and all that need to do a bit more work for their players as well. So, yeah.
Very finally then, now that we've had a couple of months to kind of reflect on it, and we saw that the Interpro series was really competitive, and we're seeing the teams like blow the lights out in the Celtic Challenge, do you feel at a domestic level and at that level now, Irish women's players are getting the game time that they probably really needed 2 or 3 years ago to get to a level they needed to be at?
Yeah, I suppose so. I think, I would like to see the Interpros probably go to 2 rounds, so that's actually a good competition to go into. I just think they just need to be playing a lot more rugby. I mean, if you look back when we were playing in 2014, we were actually at our prime of women's rugby in Ireland. We did really, really well, but that was because we were playing lots of rugby. I just think that these girls need to be playing as many games as possible, whether it's at club level, Interpro level, or the Celtic League level. And the more experience they get playing, the better they're going to get. You can only learn so much on a training pitch. It's in the real matches that you learn how to play rugby.
Is the Premiership Women's Rugby the key to that? I know you floated that idea maybe a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I did float that idea and I kind of got a slap on the wrist. But I would love to see, like, if the Celtic Challenge doesn't fully go ahead with the provincials, are we able to get one of the teams into that? That'll be a nice competition to play in. Then it will really keep our girls with the Irish setups and stop them from going over there. But I don't see that in the near future. I think that's a little bit of a push too far, but we definitely have to do something to keep the girls in Ireland, because that Prem League looks really good to play in, and we are losing players to that league.
I'm joined by one of the players from this year, the successful, triumphant players, Ruth Campbell. Good evening, Ruth.
Good evening, how are you doing?
Not too bad. Not a bad way to start your interprovincial campaign.
No, not at all. It was really exciting from the get-go. Like, obviously there was a few setbacks, but we always managed to come out on top. We had the same last year, starting off fairly bumpy, but came out on top.
Do you mind having that camera kind of following you around? Because for those that we watched episode 1 tonight, and there's a real fly on the wall following the players in their normal everyday lives. Is that something you thrive in, or are you kind of, what's this doing in the corner of my eye here?
I think it's for anyone, like, it's a bit weird having your every move watched, but kind of suck it up and you come out with some good one-liners in the end. You're all right, like.
Yeah, you were pretty good at that stuff. Is that something you're kind of? I'll save that up.
I have 2 older brothers, so you have to be a bit cheeky.
Yeah, for sure. This has been a really good year for you. Just getting your debut. I know you mentioned you'd been in the Ireland camp in Dubai, and then getting the debut against Australia in what was a really great game up in Belfast. That felt like it was a long time coming, but just talk me through that experience.
I mean, a long time coming in some ways, but like out of nowhere in others. Like I talked about how I was moving to Australia, and like I had no plan on playing professional rugby that I am now. So when I got offered a contract, then I was like, whoa, and then less than a year later got my first cap. It was like my world just got turned upside down. From college student who was moving abroad to international rugby player. It was a bit sudden. Yeah,
it's a real sliding doors moment. You're sort of, we have to completely rethink everything.
Yeah.
Coming in at the start of what feels like a really exciting journey, like that Australia game, then going over to WXV1, and now you have the Six Nations and the World Cup. That must be brilliant, really, really exciting.
Oh, 100%. I'm so excited for what's to come, and to get into camp in general is just, it's so much crack in there, like having everyone around. I'm excited for it.
You seem like someone who would thrive in that sort of crack.
I was in boarding school for a good while, so being around big groups and big numbers is nothing I'm not used to.
No. Is there anything in particular? Do you like pranks, or is there anything you kind of generate your own crack?
Yeah, we generate our own crack, but pranks are nothing new. I won't get into them, but I think I'm not actually the prank queen of the group. There's a few others that are much better at them than me, but a few of the girls took away some beds and out of hotel rooms and everything, and gave a bit of a fright to whoever was staying there once or twice. So that was pretty funny, but yeah, that was. Yeah.
You're eyeing up that prank queen crown, I think.
Nah. I keep it subtle, you know what
I mean? Yeah. You started, from the documentary, you started out in ballet and gymnastics. So, forgive me, that feels like a bit of a circuitous route to rugby in the end.
Yeah, but it was kind of ballet, gymnastics, rugby. Like, I was always playing rugby from the age of 4 or 5. So the other stuff was kind of side quests. Do you know what I mean? But they added to the final product.
How does that start? Like, you were telling us in the documentary, but how do you get your start in rugby? Because you've 2 older brothers playing, right?
Yeah, so exactly that. I was down in the club watching them train, so just got into it myself.
Excellent.
Didn't look back.
Yeah. Your teammates in Nace with Erin King, who also had a great 2024, becoming World Breakthrough Player of the Year. Was she someone you kind of had earmarked that, oh, she's going to be really good someday?
Yeah, like she was always competing all the way up. We actually played 12 and 13 together. So that's one stage. So that was a good crack. Yeah. Back when we were playing in muddy fields, that was good crack. And we were in the rugby academy together as well. So it was a good partnership going on there.
Yeah, that must be really useful just in terms of your development and having someone come with you on that journey all the way through. Having someone like as a partner, not in crime, but as a confidant and just a companion during that journey who's going through the same stuff must be really useful.
Yeah, it was definitely. Like I think Erin was always kind of a step ahead. You know, kind of got into the sevens early on and flourished there. But to be kind of reunited with her in the 15s scenario is just, it's class. Like,
are you looking at someone like Aoife Wafer and what she achieved and getting to the very, very top and becoming world class? Is that a target that you realistically have set for yourself, or? I
think that's everybody's target, to be the best of the best.
Yeah, and it's not going to be you shining at a World Cup in England?
I will see what happens.
I'm joined by former now Leinster captain Hannah O'Connor. Hannah, how are you?
Good. Weird to hear it said like that, but yeah, I'm good. Thanks a million, Cameron.
It wasn't a bad way to go out really in the end.
No, definitely a good way to go out. When there was mention of the docu-series being made, you always want to win, but it gave an extra edge to us. Like, we cannot have a docu-series where we don't go back to back. So yeah, it made it extra sweet to finish off the summer like that, and also for myself to finish off the last of my campaigns like that. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. The new documentary Bounce, I think they call that.
Yes, the new documentary. Yes, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
that impetus. But having we saw the first episode tonight, and having that kind of behind the scenes documentary that's so popular now, what did that feel like as a player? Because I know maybe Irish people aren't used to that, and we don't love delving into our private lives like that. So what was that like, having the camera there?
Yeah, exactly. It was a different kind of twist for us, but like, we were so used to having Shauna around on the camera with us the whole time, and then, you know, Tom had asked about it, and it became, they were just part of the furniture, they were part of the group, so wherever we were, they were, and like, they could have been in the middle of the huddle pre-game, and they were always very careful to, you know, they were like, are you okay with this? And it was never an issue, because it was very much, they were part of our squad too, and it just became kind of like second nature to us. You weren't doing anything that you wouldn't do, even though I probably personally, being a primary school teacher, was trying perhaps not to curse as much as I maybe normally would, but apart from that, no, there was nothing that you had to be careful of or anything like that. It was very, very natural and very comfortable between everybody once we got into it. Yeah, it was great.
Is there because we saw a bit where Eimear Corri was trying and failing to use an espresso machine, is there a part of you like going, as the camera said, oh my, there's a camera here while I'm doing this, just switched off there, this is kind of weird?
Yeah, I think for me, I was hung out to dry with my lack of growth and my hydrangeas in my garden. I wouldn't be doing anything for the gardening scene anyway, but I think, yeah, sometimes like that you're a bit like, oh God, but no, by and large you just kind of went with the flow, and when you were around the girls and when it was a team thing, you were just doing what you normally did, so it felt very, very normal.
What made you decide now is the time to maybe call it a day?
I think for, you know, a mixture of reasons. I knew probably at the end of the Six Nations that was my time with Ireland, you know, that I was going to call it at that, and I think the same for Leinster. I wanted to finish off on a high and finish off with good memories there, so I think it was a mixture, kind of a combination of things, putting the two together and not wanting to kind of carry on one without the other, really, I suppose, because I always saw like the privilege of playing with Leinster gave you a platform to play in a green jersey as well, and, you know, I had achieved, you know, my 21 caps with that, which I was delighted with. Obviously I probably would have loved to have gone on for longer, but I just felt that the time was right on both fronts, so I kind of made peace with that decision over the summer and got to head into Leinster, getting to enjoy it that bit extra, knowing that it was my last campaign.
It must have been quite the wrangling that you had to do and kind of making peace with that, because like the fact that it feels like women's rugby generally in Ireland is on a bit of a crest of a wave right now, and like we knew by then that there was a World Cup to look forward to next year, so all those different factors, it must have been quite difficult.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy decision, I'm not going to lie. It did take a lot of kind of wrangling with, for various reasons, of like, you've done this for so long, and like six years nearly of your life is knowing this, of knowing your schedule and knowing your calendar for the year and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, so give you a great sense of structure. Hanging around with the girls, as you said, women's rugby's on the rise, you're kind of getting out at a time when, you know, things are on the high. But for me personally, I had to make the right call for me, and yeah, that's one that I've come to peace with now finally, I'd say, at this stage with it. So yeah, looking forward to being able to sit on the other side and watch the girls go on to achieve great things over the next while, hopefully.
Have you noticed, I mean, it's obvious in terms of the attendances and the hype that was around WXV1 this year and going into the Six Nations and obviously the World Cup, there feels like there's that spike in popularity. But even down in grassroots level with the Interpros and even the Celtic Challenge, are you noticing that spike now?
Yeah, 100%. Like for our first home game when we were in Energia Park, to have a record crowd for us there was fantastic, and that was, you know, just adding to the layers that, as you said, that were already there from the competitions that have had, the coverage that's there, the media following around it, and just the growth of the game, and the, you know, the girls that are, you know, centralised within the Ireland programme now getting to experience that kind of full-time professional athlete life. It's paying dividends, and they've put the coaches in place there to make things work and for the benefit of everybody involved. So it's only going to go from strength to strength with everything that adds up in the jigsaw. So that's brilliant.
And it's the personalities that are starting to shine through. I mean, we had Aoife Wafer at a roadshow last week, and there's other people coming through. You think of over in the UK and the US, like Ilona Maher is such a big spokesperson for, it feels like rugby, both in men's and women's. Coming to terms with, you're now an on-screen character with the documentary, for instance, there must be a real sense of responsibility that comes with that. There is and
there isn't, I suppose. We're, you know, before I suppose the game got big, we were always acutely aware that we're going out there to represent the blue of Leinster or the green of Ireland, and you're always trying to put your best foot forward on that front. And I suppose from the coverage point of view, we're just doing what we've always been doing, and it's nice that people are jumping on the bandwagon and getting involved in it now and seeing what things have been like and that things have been growing. And as I said, you know, the train has well and truly left the station now, and people are on it, and it's going to keep growing like that. And I said, in a World Cup year, there's no better way to do it, especially off the back of us going back to back in the Interpros is fantastic, but also for the national team as well to be, you know, doing so well at WXV1 on the back of the WXV3 when maybe people had written them off. To see that and kind of prove the doubters wrong, it just shows you that there's, you know, lots to come from that group as well. So it's exciting times.
I mentioned Aoife. Are you partly exiting stage left so that Aoife can now rule the Irish back row conversation for the next 20 years?
I don't think there's I think Aoife would have, you know, triumphed in any way anyway, so I don't think they needed me to step aside for that to happen. But yeah, no, I play with her in Blackrock, so if I can get a few times put the jersey on with her in a Blackrock capacity, I'll be happy enough with that, yeah.
What's next? You're obviously going to continue playing with Blackrock, is it?
Yeah, playing with Blackrock. You know, our goals are being in the Aviva at the end of April for that final. So that's for me is the next big goal to get there and get some silverware back to the club again.
Will you go back to golf at all?
I know my mum, my dad would love that if I did. I think I probably will now that I have a bit more free time. If I have the patience for it, I will. But yeah, we'll give it a go, I'd say.
Well, I'm looking forward to see what comes next. Hannah, best of luck, and thanks for talking to me.
Thanks, Thank you.